time to make some more money on some fights because UFC 328 goes down this Saturday, May 9th. I'm going to break down every matchup on the card. Let's get right into it. We've got the flyweights kicking things off. Clayton Carpenter taking on Jose Ochoa. Two decent fighters, although they are both coming off of losses. Clayton Carpenter, his greatest strength is definitely his jiu-jitsu. From the top, he's pretty suffocating. If he gets on top in half guard, he applies a lot of solid pressure. Makes it really difficult for you to get up, and then he works some nasty elbows and ground and pound from the top. So this guy's greatest strength is when he can find top position. He's going to get on top by timing a double leg takedown. He chooses just the right time to fire in, get on his opponent's legs, run through, and finish. But other than that, you don't see a lot of other methods he uses of getting the fight to the ground. He has a couple others, but mostly just that double leg. Striking's not bad. He's going to throw a lot of heavy strikes, look for hooks, sit down on some heavy calf kicks. But I honestly wouldn't consider him a super high-level striker. I think he is somewhat hittable. Oftentimes when he's firing in with his combinations, he'll do so right on the center line, so his opponent will be able to line up shots pretty easily. I like Jose Ochoa even more, actually. He's very aggressive with his striking. He's got a lot of knockouts on his record. In fact, 100% of his wins come by way of finish. He's got extremely fast kicks, all kinds of kicks that'll work to different parts of the body. And he's got solid counters. His boxing is really crisp overall. He'll sometimes duck, then come back with strikes. He's got really good combinations. I really like his uppercut in particular. He's only listed at 5'7", which is an inch taller than Carpenter here. I think the height differential might be greater between these two. Ochoa just seems large for the division to me. In both of his fights, or all three of his fights, I should say, in the UFC, he's looked pretty large. So, according to the stats we see here, he definitely will have a size advantage, but it might be larger than what's indicated in these statistics. Now, one weakness Ochoa has, and that could cost him here, is that much like a lot of these other shoot-the-box Diego Lima guys, if he gets put on his back, sometimes he doesn't have the urgency to get up. Now, we've seen Ochoa does have some decent takedown defense, and then if he wants to, he can get back to his feet. He can kick off, he can even just give his back to return to his feet. When he's fresh, I think he's fine, but once he starts to get tired, you'll see him try to play jiu-jitsu, and that's not something he's going to want to do here, because even though Carpenter got Kimura swept by Fielho in his last fight and ended up getting submitted, I don't think that's something we're going to see a whole lot. Clayton Carpenter has pretty good top pressure when he's in a dominant position, so I'm not so sure Ochoa is going to be able to rely on that. I think if he is taken down, he's going to have to just get up, use what energy he has to work his way back to his feet, or better yet, not even get taken down. So Clayton Carpenter getting takedowns in control time is a path for him here. I don't think he's going to get the job done, most likely. I think Jose Ochoa has more ways to win. I think he hits a lot harder. I think he's faster with his strikes. I think he's definitely going to be able to tag Carpenter when he comes in. And if Carpenter is wasting time at distance, he's going to be eating some kicks. I don't think it's going to be that easy for Carpenter to take Ochoa down, especially if there is a significant size discrepancy here. I think Ochoa is going to be live for a knockout. Now, minus 175, not interested in betting that just because I think there is, again, a real chance Carpenter can find some takedowns here, maybe get some control time. But most likely, I do think Ochoa will win. I think he'll win by KO, if anything. So give me Jose Ochoa by second round knockout to kick things off. Next we got middleweights. Baisangur Susurkaev taking on Jordan Santos. Susurkaev, he is a guy who has a pretty broad skill set, we say. He mixes up his striking really well. He switches stances. He's got all kinds of kicks. He can work combinations when he needs to. Really proficient in all areas of MMA. He knows how to do a little bit of everything. But usually he's pressuring, although he can work on the retreat a little bit. Typically, if you watch most of his fights, he's the one pressuring forward. And he can also grapple effectively. That might be important here. He's got good wrestling. He can manipulate his opponent well from the body lock, lift and slam them up. And if he has to, he can just cage press, start working some knees, which might be something he does here. But to be perfectly honest, we see the name. I think this guy's going to get fraud checked at some point. Might not be here. You see he's a very large favorite on the money line. But he messes around too much. I don't think he really likes getting hit a ton. You see the way he just covers up sometimes without countering. I don't think that's a good look. I do think this guy's maybe a little bit overrated, and that we could see him get fraud checked. Will Jordan Santos be able to fraud check him? Who knows? He did get an upset his last time out against Danny Barlow. He's just going to throw nonstop volume. He's coming forward. He's firing combinations over and over and over again. He actually does a pretty good job of feinting, trying to get his opponent to react, and then opening things up for him to fire back. Not a horrible fighter, although he doesn't have a ton of power. Now, if you watch some of his previous fights, it looks like he's sort of swatting with his punches. Not really a good look. Not a ton of power. He's not really hurting a whole bunch of people. If he is, it's probably after he lands a lot of strikes and it's just mounting volume rather than one-punch knockout power. Now, regarding the wrestling, if you watch the previous tape on Santos, his takedown defense tends to do pretty well. He can defend most double legs and single legs. He's got pretty good balance. He seems to be fairly strong. He's got a good sprawl, and he doesn't go down easily. Now, we don't know a ton about what happens once he's actually taken down, and then maybe Susurkaev could take him down with some trips or body lock takedowns as opposed to those level changes, which we see Santos able to defend pretty well. So ultimately, in terms of who's more likely to win, yeah, I'm going to be leaning Susurkaev like most people, but minus 575 is crazy. This guy spends a ton of time messing around. If you throw a lot of strikes at him, he seems to get a little overwhelmed. You know, at times, we've seen him get a little bit flustered in his first two UFC fights, and those were against the guy making his debut, and then Eric McConaughey, who we know is not that great a fighter. He might have beaten Rodolfo Vieira, but Vieira's washed at this point. So I don't know about Susurkaev. If anything, I would rather bet the Santos money line at plus 445, but I'm thinking if you want to fade Susurkaev without betting Santos, maybe the over 1.5 is a good look, because last time I checked, that was around minus 130. Because Susurkaev will spend a good amount of time messing around, and Santos is kind of tough, so I don't think he's going to look for a way out that early. Over 1.5 might be good, Santos money line might be good, but obviously, I think Susurkaev gets it done more times than not, so give me Susurkaev by decision. Featherweight's next. Pat Sabatini taking on William Gomis. So this is an interesting one. Pat Sabatini is on an absolute tear right now. 3-fight win streak, I believe. He's going to try to just stay at range with his kicks, circle around, but striking is not his cup of tea for the most part. He's barely competent in the striking, just to make sure he can integrate the other portions of his game, which are the wrestling and the grappling. He's going to be shooting for a takedown pretty quick. This guy has an extensive wrestling background. His wrestling is about as good as you'll see. And yeah, he just has that wrestler's strength. If you ever trained jiu-jitsu with a wrestler who's been doing grappling for a large portion of their life, you notice that they've just got freakish strength. A sort of strength that you can't even get from just lifting weights. And that's what Pat Sabatini has. When he gets a hold of people, he can just throw them around, control them however he wants. And man, is he suffocating. If this guy gets you down, good luck trying to get back up. He gives you no space. He sticks to you like glue. And then anytime you try to move, to begin to get up, he's perfect with his transitions. He's not making any mistakes. He knows exactly what to do next to keep you in his grasp. So Pat Sabatini, he does have some durability issues. We've seen him get knocked out before. The problem is it's just you can't get a lot of opportunities to hurt this guy because he stays at range until he starts to grapple. And then once he gets on you, he doesn't usually get off. William Gomis, he's not fighting in Paris now where he tends to get some favorable scorecards. But he is younger, he's pretty tall, fights out of southpaw stance, and his game is to just manage distance, not do a whole lot, but do more than you. He's really hard to hit, he's got great vision, he's fast, works a lot of kicks, uses his length from range to outpoint you, and if you try to close the distance on him, he sort of angles off and works these counter hooks. He's also pretty physically strong, even though he looks to be skinny. He's definitely not weak, and he's got decent takedown defense, at least statistically. He's got strong underhooks, and then after he defends takedowns, he'll work some knees. But the problem is he doesn't disengage that urgently when his opponent shoots, and that might be a problem for him here because if Pat Sabatini locks on, you got to get away from him. You can't waste time because he's just going to keep chaining things together until he gets you down. Now, I think, for example, Gomis could defend the single legs of Sabatini because he's tall and he's got good balance. But if Sabatini gets him against the fence, starts dragging on him from the body lock, I think he's probably going to be able to work him down. And a big problem with Gomis is that, other than groin strikes, because that's the only way he's gotten a UFC finish, it went down as a body kick against Giannis Gamori, but everybody knows he kicked him in the groin. He got a groin shot, TKO. Other than that, the guy's not dangerous, and that's a problem. I think you got to be dangerous against Sabatini. If you're not, if you're just looking to point fight, Sabatini doesn't have to worry about any threat. Sabatini can just shoot as many takedowns as he wants. He doesn't have to worry about getting tired because Gomis not going to push any kind of pace. So if Sabatini fails takedowns, he's like, okay, I probably won't get finished. I can just shoot again later. And the lack of urgency means I don't think Gomis is going to be able to readily get back to space if Sabatini, holds him against the fence or takes him down. That's a big problem because Sabatini's so good at winning minutes. You really have to make the few chances you have at distance count. And Gomis just doesn't do that because he's so passive. He doesn't want to hurt his opponents. So ultimately, I lean with Sabatini. I think you might be able to play minus 200, but I'm going to wait for the line to come down. I think Pat Sabatini will be able to get his grappling going, and if he can't get him down in space, I think he could get him down against the cage and mount some control time. Gomis can be kind of hard to control just because he's so long. If he posts, it can be sort of hard to grab his post wrist because he's got that extra length on you. But I think Sabatini is going to be strong enough to keep him down at times and potentially get to the back. The age difference worries me a little bit. And it also worries me that at this point, everybody knows how good Sabatini is, so we're not fooling anybody. We're not getting any discount on him for the money line. But again, if money does come in on Gomis, I think a Sabatini money line play will open up. Give me Pat Sabatini by decision. We got middleweights next. Roman Kopylov, the Russian, taking on Marco Tulio. Roman Kopylov fights out of the southpaw stance. He's extremely, extremely quick with the hands. He's going to look to create openings, try to get outside foot position, and then let the hands go. Works really well with his left hand, his straight left. His jab works to the body really well. Quick combinations, quick head kicks, and then he's got some sneaky wrestling as well. We don't see it a ton. He used it to get past Cesar Almeida because Almeida was giving him a little bit of trouble on the feet. But yeah, Roman Kopylov, he defends takedowns super well, and then he can land takedowns of his own. Usually people don't see him coming, and he doesn't try to hold his opponents down much, but we do know he has the opportunity to score takedowns when he needs them. And the biggest problem with Roman Kopylov is that he doesn't have great cardio, right? He's notorious for gassing. Sometimes he can sort of get second wins. For example, against Chris Curtis, it looked like he was really, really tired at the end of round 1, but then he was able to fight strong for the remainder of the fight, and then ended up whacking Chris Curtis with a head kick in the final minute of round 3. So even though this guy gasses, we can see he often fights through it or gets a second wind. But the chin is starting to look a little concerning. He didn't look great in the striking in his last fight against RoboCop, and then Paulo Costa, I believe, hurt him multiple times. Taking on Marco Tulio here, he throws a lot of heavy strikes. He's a big guy, big, powerful fighter, and throws quite a bit of volume. He's going to throw a lot of kicks from both legs. He's going to fire some combinations. He's got some good hooks. But he will clinch up if he needs to. He's not just a striker. Tries to mix in some trips. His wrestling overall, I wouldn't consider it to be that great. His jiu-jitsu, okay, but not crazy. But even though he mainly wants to use his power strikes, he will mix in some grappling. This guy's problem is that he's kind of slow. I think Kopylov definitely has a speed advantage, although Tulio might have the power advantage. The other problem we've got with Tulio is the chin. So he's been knocked out twice. Both of his losses come by knockout. We saw him get knocked out in his last fight against Christian Leroy Duncan, just brutally slept. And then he also got hurt against Tresean Gore. He sort of got stunned for a moment. So this guy definitely has some chin issues. I think Kopylov could exploit that here. I could see how either guy could cause problems for their opponents. The reason why I think you could argue for Tulio here is because Kopylov hasn't looked great in his last couple fights. He was favored against Paulo Costa, but clearly should not have been the favorite. Struggled against him and struggled a lot against RoboCop. Just seem a little bit more passive than usual, which is not good. But the problems for Tulio is that he's not really too fast. He doesn't have any crazy good wins yet. I mean, beating Tresean Gore and Ihor Pochieria, those guys don't have a ton of UFC wins, even though Gore looked good in his last fight. And the chin of Tulio's not that great. I mean, Kopylov could absolutely find that chin with those fast hands or even with one of those nasty head kicks. So when looking at this money line, I think it should be closer to a pick'em. Give me Kopylov here at plus 165. I already placed a bet on him. I think got reverse CLV'd because my price was 155, but yeah, I think that works too. Think this should be close to a pick'em, and I'm going to go Roman Kopylov by second round KO. Lightweight bout between two of the unks. Jim Miller taking on Jared Gordon. So Jim Miller is now 42 years old, and the last time we saw him was in April of 25 against Chase Hooper, and he ended up losing that fight by unanimous decision. Now, I know Chase Hooper's a lot younger, but let's be honest, that loss hasn't aged too well because Chase Hooper has gotten creamed in the first round twice since then. So we're not going to expect the best version of Jim Miller here, although he is a dog. He likes to counter strikes, he waits for his opponents to fire, and then he fires combinations in return, and has got really heavy low kicks. So Jared Gordon is going to have to watch out. Even though Jim Miller is old, he's likely going to be slower, not going to be as dangerous. He still is tough and can definitely crack. His best path here might be to try to take Jared Gordon down and then use jiu-jitsu to get to the back. But Jared Gordon's a minus 300 favorite here, and rightfully so in a lot of ways. He's really good with his pressure boxing. He can put together a lot of volume. He's got a strong jab. I really like the way he manages distance. So Jared Gordon, he's not as old as Miller, but he is in his late 30s. Starting to slow down a little bit, but you can just tell this guy has veteran savvy. He manages distance pretty well. He knows just when to get out of the pocket after throwing, so he can still make his opponents miss a bit. I think that's going to be a big advantage here. I think as he's pressuring forward, he can tag Miller with the jab. I think he can make Miller miss a little bit by just slipping out of range. And I think he's going to be mounting the volume here against Miller. Now, I mentioned Miller could possibly get takedowns here. Miller doesn't attempt a ton of takedowns, and when Jared Gordon's taken down, he can usually pop right back up, tries to stuff the head, get back to his feet. We don't see Gordon have a ton of difficulty with being taken down. I know Grant Dawson subbed him, but that's Grant Dawson, as we'll talk about in a bit. Jared Gordon might end up giving his back here, but I'm not super confident Miller's going to be able to take him down and then get to his back. It could happen, but not super probable. And, we did see Jared Gordon struggle against Rafa Garcia. He was looking good for much of that fight, but his durability just gave out toward the end. And, of course, that was when he got hit by a car. He got hit by a car, unbeknownst to a lot of people, came in with this big knee sleeve and then ended up not looking his normal self, ended up losing Rafa Garcia, even though a lot of people thought Gordon would win dominantly. So I'm guessing Gordon's going to be in better physical condition for this one, hopefully. And he should beat Jim Miller. He should be able to mount the volume on him. Jim Miller's probably going to look kind of slow since he hasn't been in the cage for a while. And because his reaction time's going, his ability to counter is probably not going to be on point. So I expect Gordon to get this one done, but not interested in laying minus 300. And quite frankly, I don't know what to do in terms of a finish. Jared Gordon's not a prolific finisher. And Jim Miller, even though he's old, he's been historically tough. So I'm going to say Jared Gordon gets this one done by decision. Two really good lightweights going at it. Grant Dawson versus Mateusz Rebecki. Grant Dawson has put together quite a record in the UFC. Only 2 losses. He's got plenty of wins. If you're not knocking him out in round 1, good luck trying to get past this guy because he has some of the best wrestling you'll ever see. He's got a number of ways to get the fight to the ground. He's extremely strong. And not only is he good at getting takedowns, but he has elite control. He's not going to give you an inch. He's going to stick to you like glue. He's going to control your legs, not let you stand back up. He's going to take your back, lock up a body triangle. Good luck trying to get away from this guy. On the feet, he does look like he's gone to a striking class before, but not a ton of power. His striking is not the most effective element of his game. And he does look kind of uncomfortable if he's ever on the feet for extended periods of time. And I don't really blame him for that because the guy straight up can't take a punch. He has been beaten twice in the UFC, both times by first round knockout. Now, Manuel Torres, we know he's got a lot of power, so if he catches you, you're probably cooked. But King Green, maybe Bobby Green at the time, he doesn't have that much power. I know he knocked out Daniel Zellhuber, but if you look at King Green's last several fights, he is not getting many knockouts, so getting knocked out by him is not good. And then when we see Grant Dawson hurt, he doesn't usually recover too well. When Torres and Green took him out, it was like they hurt him and then finished him shortly after. Not a lot of recoverability. So Grant Dawson's great as long as he can get his grappling going, and he almost always can. But holy smokes, if he gets cracked, he's probably finished. He just doesn't have a lot of recoverability. Mateusz Rebecki can definitely crack. He's short and stocky, doesn't have the best reach, but he's just going to move forward in that southpaw stance and wing huge power strikes, big hooks, going to come out trying to take your head off, and also has really nice calf kicks. So Grant Dawson's not going to want to stick with this guy in the feet. Rebecki's takedown defense for the UFC is around 50%, pretty low. That's with a really low sample size of takedown attempts against him. So his takedown defense is likely a lot better than that, and he's extremely strong. We know that. He's a good wrestler overall. The big question for this fight is Grant Dawson going to be able to take him down? Because If he can't, yeah, Rebecki's going to be live here. Kind of hard to tell because we just don't have a ton of footage of Rebecki defending takedowns. I believe Diego Ferreira got a takedown against him, but that's when he was so tired he pretty much couldn't do anything. If Rebecki's able to defend these takedowns, get back to his feet, he could absolutely hurt Grant Dawson. One of Rebecki's problems is that he gasses out, so he's got a lot of muscle, comes out fighting at a crazy pace, trying to take his opponent's head off, but he cannot sustain that pace. He won't give up on himself, but he definitely slows down. So yeah, I think there's absolutely a world where Grant Dawson's able to get to Rebecki's legs, take him down, hold him down, but I don't see that happening as easily as a lot of other people do. I think Grant Dawson might struggle to get takedowns, and then if he gets caught early by Rebecki, I mean, he's going to be cooked. He's got no recoverability. So at this price, I think we have to almost go with Rebecki, if anything. I'm not going to play him yet because I think, this one could go either way. If Rebecki's money line gets to plus 150 or better, I think we got to look toward him. Give me Rebecki by round 1 KO. Welterweights next. Joel Alvarez, the Spaniard, taking on Yaroslav Amosov. Joel Alvarez moving up from lightweight. This is going to be his second fight at welterweight. His first one, he got a decision win against Vicente Luque. He's extremely long. For lightweight, he was freakishly tall, but even at welterweight, he's still pretty tall and long, and he's going to have, looks like a 4-inch height advantage here, at least according to the numbers. He's got some powerful straight punches. He's got a jab. He's got a right hand that's very powerful. Really, really likes his lead hook. He's going to look to land that a lot, and everything he throws is extremely powerful. Throws a good technique, and he's big, so there's plenty of force behind everything he does. He also has some good kicks, but what he's really known for is his submission ability. He's not necessarily a guy that wants to take you down. It's just he's so powerful on the feet, people either try to take him down or they get dropped, and that's when Alvarez can look for his submissions. He can try to attempt submissions from his guard, but he really likes his front chokes, particularly the darce. He's got really long limbs. If he starts to wrap one of those chokes up, it might be lights out shortly afterward. But there are some problems with Alvarez, so his takedown defense is not great. A lot of times it's because when people take him down, he's just going to willingly go to the ground because he knows he can work subs. But that might be a problem here against Amosov, who's a very seasoned grappler. And also at times, Alvarez looks like he can maybe slow down. His significant strikes landed per minute at distance, statistically, not bad. Decent for the division, but there are times when Alvarez can start to slow down and throw little volume. Sometimes he's not working in combinations that well, just throwing one at a time, and his volume can start to wane. He's going up against Amosov here. Now, he's got an incredible 29-1 record. This guy was an absolute stud in Bellator. His evasive footwork is amazing. He's got really good timing for when he strikes. He can slip back, come back with combinations. Really knows what he's doing in all areas of striking. And then his grappling is phenomenal. He's got really greasy grappling because he can grapple for long periods of time. He can work through just about any position. He's got good level changes, good single legs. Does a good job when he gets to the body lock. And I expect him to go for a lot of takedowns here against Alvarez. Now, his one loss does come from getting chinned. He got chinned by Jason Jackson in the big Bellator fight. But other than that, this guy has never even lost a fight. So Joel Alvarez, we know he can hurt Amosov if he connects. The problem is Amosov has really good footwork. He's not super easy to hit, and then he's probably going to be able to get some wrestling going here. I do think he's going to get in on Alvarez, get to the body lock, and start taking him down. Alvarez not super keen to get up all the time, can waste time looking for submissions. And yeah, he does have a good submission game, but I just don't think it's going to work on Amosov. I think Amosov is going to be able to clear everything Alvarez is doing in terms of submissions. So I do favor Amosov here just because A, he could get takedowns in control, and B, Alvarez can be low volume on the feet at times, and using his footwork, Amosov could minimize how much he gets hit, and maybe get ahead with some combinations and kicks of his own. But I don't want to lay minus 175. I'd like a better price on him because I think Alvarez does have the ability to finish him. If Amosov wins, I think it's going to be a decision. So we'll see what his decision prop looks like. But give me Yaroslav Amosov to win this fight by decision. Oh boy, we got middleweights. Atiba Gautier taking on Ozzy Diaz. This fight was already supposed to happen, but they rebooked it. Atiba Gautier, really fundamentally sound with his hands. He's got a good guard. Everything he throws with pretty good technique. He keeps his feet under him, and that allows him to generate terrifying power. I mean, when you get hit by this guy, it feels like you're getting hit by a truck. When he lands clean, people get dropped. He's, I believe, the first person to actually knock out Jose Medina. That guy was known for his durability until Gautier took it away from him, and then Medina's since been finished after that. But yeah, not many people are going to be able to take strikes from Gautier. One of the problems with him is, and we haven't really gotten a lot of updates on this, but if you go to the early pre-UFC footage, his grappling doesn't look too good, and we haven't really seen anything that would confirm it's improved that much. So going forward, we're going to have to keep that in mind for Gautier. The problem is Ozzy Diaz doesn't grapple that much, and he's got a really, really rough chin. I believe 3 losses by KO. If you connect on this guy's chin, it might be all over. So Ozzy Diaz might want to get some nice life insurance, maybe do some praying, and then if in fact he loses this fight, hopefully he can say hi to Shannon Ross and Phil Haas for us in chinny heaven. Now in all seriousness, a fight is a fight. Anything can happen. Ozzy Diaz is, at the end of the day, a big guy. And yeah, it's not like Gautier has an invincible chin, so if he gets cracked by Diaz, he could get hurt. But obviously, it's a lot more likely the reverse is going to happen. Gautier is going to knock out Diaz, especially since Diaz is pretty aggressive and he doesn't grapple. Diaz also hasn't fought in forever. His last time fighting, I believe, is in April of 2025. It's been a long time when he beat Jordan Santos. So yeah, everybody and their grandma's taking Gautier by round 1 KO. Everybody knows that's the most probable outcome. Would I bet Gautier minus 1100? No, but give me Gautier by first round KO. Prayers for Ozzy Diaz. Hopefully, he's doing a lot of praying. Yet another lightweight fight. It's King Green taking on Jeremy Stephens. So King Green, we already talked about him this year because he got a win over Daniel Zellhuber. Looked really sharp. Of course, a lot of that's just due to Zellhuber being not sharp. But he ultimately found a round 2 finish in that fight. So good work by Green. He's got that same unorthodox style we've come to know him for. Hands really, really low. He's kind of square. Just relies on head movement, rolls really well, tucks his chin. Really, really frustrating to hit if you're hunting for his head. Then he just throws up his hands from weird angles because he keeps them so low. Mostly straight punches, but he can work hooks around the guards too. And then he's got some good front kicks. Got that unorthodox style, which works really well for him. The 1s and 2s in particular, I think, will be money here because Jeremy Stephens doesn't have the best defense. He's not super fast. I think he's going to walk on to a lot of things here. So I think as King Green backs up, he can just stick that jab, stick the 1s and 2s, the straight punches, and just whack Stephens in the face over and over again. Now, even though Green is still looking good, he's actually on a 2-fight win streak. He doesn't seem to have declined that much. But we know he is getting older, he is declining, and yeah, he's got things going on outside of the cage like a strip club. Granted, it's really cool that he owns a strip club, but at this point, you have to be concerned about how seriously he's taking his career, and we can't trust him too much. He's going up against Jeremy Stephens, who returned to the UFC last year, took a loss to Mason Jones. He's got heavy calf kicks. If he can land those here against Green, they might be able to help him out, but usually Green sees those coming pretty well. He sees just about everything coming well. Jeremy Stephens is not nearly as skilled a striker as Green overall, but holy cow, he does like to load up on his punches. He has a lot of knockouts. And if he can connect with Green, we've seen Green chinned a lot, and it's not going to go well. Green's probably going to hit the floor and get finished shortly after. It's just kind of a long shot to hope Jeremy Stephens wins one of those huge shots because King Green has really good vision. He protects himself really well even with his hands low. And Jeremy Stephens, he's at a big speed disadvantage, so it's not going to be easy for him to catch Green. A big problem for Stephens here is that his face reddens very easily. I think King Green's going to land a ton of significant strikes. That's going to create visible damage on the face of Stephens. So unless Stephens can either grapple, which I don't think he'll do, King Green's a really good wrestler, or land a big shot, I think he's going to get creamed here. I think King Green's just going to sting him over and over again, working backwards, have better speed, just time things really well, and just turn Jeremy Stephens' face into hamburger. So I think King Green's going to win a decision. I'm not laying minus 300 because I can't trust Green given he's getting older and he's doing things outside the cage. And Jeremy Stephens could land a big shot, but I think Green gets this one done in most cases. So give me Green by decision. I think his straight punches are going to be money here. Big fight in the welterweight division. We got Sean Brady taking on Joaquin Buckley. Sean Brady gets a hold of you, you're in real trouble. This guy's about as strong as they come. Earlier in his career, he was saying he could bench 340 pounds. It's probably more than that. This guy has freakish strength. He puts on a ton of weight after weighing in. By the time he gets into the cage, he weighs in about 200 pounds. And he's going to go right to that grappling, although sometimes not soon enough, as we found out in his last fight against Michael Morales. But if he does get a hold of you, you're going to be in real trouble. He doesn't have a ton of power on the feet, some light striking. He throws a lot of lead leg calf kicks. He'll blitz in with some combinations. Doesn't really move his head too much, which isn't great because we found out he's not the most durable guy in the world. He wants to go to his grappling though. In most cases, that's what he should do. And not only is he extremely strong, but he has great transitions on the ground. Really hard to get away from him. He goes to your back super well. Has super smooth hooks, the way he just slips his hooks in to get backpack. He knows exactly how to manipulate you to keep you subdued. His submission game is also crazy. He likes Kimuras. He's got a mounted guillotine, which you saw in his last win against Leon Edwards. If this guy gets on top of you in dominant positions, you're going to be in real trouble. He's also got arm triangles. He can definitely submit you from the back as well. Can have you in all kinds of trouble if he gets you down. Joaquin Buckley, a completely different type of fighter. He's going to use explosive striking. This guy is extremely fast twitch. He's going to just swing for the fences, try to hit you as hard as he can. And he can swing for the fences, it seems, without getting tired. We've seen him in a 5-round fight before against Kamaru Usman. In round 5, he was still swinging like crazy. So this guy doesn't really get tired when it comes to striking. And he's dangerous throughout the fight. Just ask Stephen Wonderboy Thompson that. In terms of defending takedowns, Buckley definitely has strong hips. He's athletic. But I think the way he rushes in at times leaves him vulnerable to being taken down. If he's just showing Sean Brady his hips, just blitzing straight in, Sean Brady's going to be able to time a takedown, and then the rest might be history because this guy's supposedly getting better as jiu-jitsu. He's apparently training with Kamaru Usman. But holy smokes, I'm going to need to see him actually improve his grappling because as far as I can tell, this guy has never done jiu-jitsu in his life prior to that Kamaru Usman fight. You could even see in fights earlier than that, this guy just doesn't know anything when he's on the ground. He just tries to use sheer explosivity to get back to his feet, but that's not going to work against Sean Brady. And even if Buckley is working on his jiu-jitsu skills, he's clearly way behind because going into the Usman fight, he's known nothing. Sean Brady levels ahead in the control. So yeah, I think this kind of comes down to whether or not Sean Brady gets takedowns. If the fight stays on the feet, it's hard to imagine him winning. Sean Brady's not going to tire out Buckley on the feet because Buckley's got good stamina, and Buckley's proven to have the better durability in this division, even though he's been knocked out at middleweight, and Buckley hits way harder. But if Sean Brady gets the fight to the ground, I don't trust Buckley's jiu-jitsu. I think Sean Brady's going to be a lot physically stronger in those grappling exchanges, and I think he can maybe get to the back and find a submission. So I kind of like the under 2.5 here. It's close to even money. I think if Buckley's winning, it's probably by knockout. Both of Sean Brady's losses come by knockout. And if Sean Brady gets his game going, I think he can absolutely submit Buckley. Buckley has just not shown that he knows what to do on the ground. I think Brady could easily advance to dominant positions and find various submissions. So for this fight, I am going to say Brady probably gets those takedowns. I just don't trust Buckley enough. I don't think he's got quite high enough fight IQ to make sure he stays off the ground. I think he could blitz into a well-timed takedown by Brady, or Brady could get him against the fence and then work him down from there. I think it's going to be a lot easier for Brady to find takedowns if he can get in close against the fence. So give me Brady. I'm going to say by round 2, submission. We got heavyweights. Alexander Volkov, the Giant, taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta, who's been on fire recently. Alexander Volkov is a guy who's going to take advantage of being 6'7" and having an 80-inch reach. He's going to work a lot of kicks. He's going to poke at you, keep you at bay. Has decent combinations, and then he also counters really well. So if you try to close a distance against him, he's going to be able to make you pay with some counters. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty good. He definitely knows what he's doing on the ground. You don't want this guy on top of you. He can definitely work some submissions. And then as we saw in his last fight against Almeida, yeah, he knows how to deal with offensive grappling that his opponent's throwing at him. He can find ways to get back up. He can even reverse position. I don't think Waldo Cortes-Acosta is really going to be attempting takedowns here, but Volkov has shown that he's a bit difficult to deal with on the ground at times. But one thing I don't like about Volkov is that he's kind of slow. He's getting up there in age. I think Cortes-Acosta definitely has a speed advantage on him. You know, the length is good. From a skill perspective, he's pretty good. Good strike variety and good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. just think he's not super fast. So that's one thing some fighters might be able to take advantage of. While Cortes-Acosta, he's got a slick jab. The problem with him is, I think he kind of struggles against guys with a lot of reach. Against Sergey Pavlovich, it was a really weird fight to watch, but Cortes-Acosta the whole time was just like winging strikes out of range. Like he couldn't hit Pavlovich. He was throwing, but nothing was landing, and Pavlovich has that freakish reach. I think Cortes-Acosta was scared of the power. He didn't want to get too close, and that slick, quick jab he has just wasn't really working. He does place punches pretty well. I don't think he's got crazy power, but you see a lot of knockouts on his record. He won his last 2 fights by KO. I think that's more due to how well he's placed those strikes as opposed to just sheer power. Like the strike he placed on Shamil Gaziev, the right hand, was beautiful. So even though I don't think this guy has a ton of power, he places his punches really well, which can lead to knockouts, but doesn't really throw a lot of kicks. His takedown defense has improved. We saw that especially against Sergey Spivak, and even in the past, when he has been taken down, he's usually able to get back up. He can give up his back at times, but most of these heavyweight fighters aren't going to take his back. So if Volkov does go for takedowns, maybe he can get some, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to hold Cortes-Acosta down. We see Volkov's a favorite. I am concerned about the fact that he's kind of slow, but I think the length will loom large because Cortes-Acosta, he is content to just, sit at range and lose fights. We saw everything slip away from him against Pavlovich. He didn't really do anything. So that's a concern I have for him. I think he could just get tagged from range. Volkov working kicks, just working some straight punches, getting ahead in the strike numbers. Cortes-Acosta is younger. He could find a way to pull this out, but I think minus 170 is pretty appropriate for Volkov. Not really interested in playing a money line here. I think it's about right, but I think the fight probably goes the distance. So we'll see what the prices are on the props throughout the week. But give me Volkov by decision. Co-main event, and I like this one. We got Joshua Van defending his flyweight title against Tatsuro Taira. Joshua Van, he has overwhelming pressure. His significant strike numbers are off the charts. He's just going to come at you nonstop. Doesn't really care if he gets hit. Does a good job of slipping back when his opponents strike, but he still is going to eat quite a few punches. He's got a nasty jab. He's got some good front kicks, but really, really good when he puts his combinations together and works to the body. Now, I will say, even though he has a lot of finishes, this guy just does not have one-punch knockout power, right? He's not very big. In fact, if there was a men's strawweight, you'd probably be competing in that, because this guy, even for flyweight, is pretty small. Doesn't have a lot of one-punch KO power, but if you let him get rolling downhill and his strikes add up, yeah, he can definitely finish you. Now, really, I'm kind of upset that Joshua Van became champion without truly having his grappling tested, right? He fought Felipe Bunes, but that guy has 1 round of cardio, and yeah, Bunes did have him in some trouble at the end of round 1. He fought Cody Durden, but Cody Durden, he's not the best grappler in the world. He really struggled against Yamjargal Tumendembrel, who even Carlos Hernandez out-grappled. And then he did beat Ray Saruya, but Saruya is very young, still has to do a lot of work in terms of translating his grappling to MMA, and yeah, once again, Saruya got him in like a Kasagatomi, like a headlock in round 2, and Van got kept there for a bit. Really didn't like the way that looked. Van was supposed to fight Taira before, a little while ago, not only for the title, but long ago. These guys were supposed to fight before Van became champion, and the fight did not end up happening. Van was also supposed to fight Tagir Ulanbekov, but that fight didn't happen, I believe, because Ulanbekov missed weight. And then when Van was finally supposed to fight Alexandre Pantoja, Pantoja instantly got injured. So, yeah, I don't think we've really seen Van's grappling get tested that much. And to be perfectly honest, we already talked about Buckley. I think he's better than Buckley, but his jiu-jitsu just doesn't look great to me. He doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. Lots of opportunities to take his back. And because he's so small, I think that's a liability. I think a lot of these guys can out-grapple him, and who better to do that than Tatsuro Taira? When this guy came into the UFC, he was very young, seemed kind of skinny, but make no mistake, he's been putting on a lot of muscle. He's looking a lot more physical. He's going to have a huge physicality advantage here over Josh Van, because Josh Van is small, Tatsuro Taira extremely athletic, explosive, and strong. So if he gets a hold of Van, even if not in a super advantageous position, I think he's going to be able to work Van down. And let's not forget, Tatsuro Taira can hurt you with his strikes. He needs some improvement. I don't think he's going to be able to win a lot of sustained striking matches, but he can win moments for sure. He's very explosive, he's fast, and he can hit really hard. In fact, if one guy is going to drop the other guy early, I think it's actually going to be Taira dropping Van, because let's be honest, Van doesn't have great durability. He got knocked out by Charles Johnson, and we've seen him hurt in other fights, like against Edgar Chairez. So I think Taira could absolutely crack Van here. And if Tatsuro Taira gets to your back, you're cooked. This guy's back control is about as good as it comes. He gets to the back extremely quickly, and then he maintains that back control super well. You're just not going to get away from him. He underhooks your arms, maintains perfect position, and is extremely strong, so you're just not going to be able to work your way free. If I'm being completely honest here, I don't think people understand how much of a mismatch this could be. This could end up being one of the greatest betting opportunities we see this year. Because Tatsuro Taira is going to go for takedowns. He has a massive physicality advantage. I do believe he's going to get Van down. Van, statistically, his takedown defense is good, but he's not going up against grapplers like Taira. Taira has a number of ways to get the fight to the ground, and again, I think just his sheer strength is going to be enough to get Van down. And once he does that, he's probably going to take his back. And Van's lack of jiu-jitsu skills, I think, will be exposed, because we've seen him in the UFC for a while. But over the course of his career, we just see moments where it looks like his grappling's not that good. Jump from Felipe Bunes to over a year later against Ray Saruya. It's just not that good. I don't have confidence that this guy's BJJ is great, and certainly not on the level of a Tatsuro Taira. So I think Tatsuro Taira will be able to take him down, use that physicality, possibly get to the back, and then either work a lot of ground and pound or find a submission. Taira's ground and pound has gotten really nasty. So give me Tatsuro Taira to expose Van's grappling and be the first guy to submit him in the UFC. Van has been submitted before, just not in the UFC. I think Tatsuro Taira gets this one done by second round submission and takes the belt. Minus 155, I think that's an absolute steal on the money line. Let's get it. Finally, for the main event, these guys have been talking a lot of smack. We got the undefeated Khamzat Chimaev taking on Sean Strickland. I mean, we all know what Khamzat Chimaev is about. What do I even have to say? He might be the best MMA wrestler in the UFC. This guy attempts non-stop takedowns, and more times than not, he's going to get each takedown he attempts. Very rare to see over 50% takedown accuracy for any fighter who has a lot of takedown attempts in the UFC, but that's what Chimaev has. I mean, you're just not stopping this guy. As Robert Whitaker once put it, I don't see anybody stopping that takedown. And I think his stamina has been underestimated too. There were a lot of people who thought Dracus du Plessis was going to beat him just because there was maybe evidence of Chimaev getting tired, but clearly that was all a crock of BS, because Khamzat Chimaev smoked, humiliated DDP across 5 rounds, didn't get tired at all. Now, you could argue that was because DDP was doing a terrible job in the grappling, not getting up to his feet, not making Chimaev work, but I think Chimaev is in pretty good shape, and that he's going to be able to power through any fatigue. Now, another thing that could be getting underestimated here is I don't think people recognize how good his striking is. Obviously, he prefer to grapple, but his striking's clean and he's got power. He's also really tough. So even if these two are striking, yeah, Sean Strickland's the better tactical striker, probably more skilled overall, sees things better, but he's not going to completely rinse Chimaev while they're on the feet, so keep that in mind for this fight. Now, we don't really know a ton about Sean Strickland's defensive grappling. We kind of had to make theories about it going into his last fight against Hernandez, but Hernandez didn't attempt that many takedowns, so we still don't know a ton about what Sean Strickland's grappling looks like at the UFC level. Certainly, we haven't seen it a lot. DDP tried to take him down, but DDP's not a great grappler, and Sean Strickland worked back up pretty quick. Now, I do think if taken down, Sean Strickland's going to be able to stay safe. I think he's very knowledgeable in the area of BJJ. Obviously, a ton of experience grappling and training, even if not in fights. And I think he'll be able to eventually work back to his feet. I think he's going to be able to stay safe. I don't think he's going to let Chimaev secure back control. I don't think Chimaev's going to be able to get to that many super dominant positions. Maybe he will, but even if he does, I think Sean Strickland's going to be knowledgeable enough for this submission defense to stay safe and survive. I do think we probably see him get back to his feet a lot. But here's the problem with Strickland. We see he's a big underdog here. To be honest, I'm not even tempted at plus 420, because even if he's able to get back up, the problem with Strickland is he's not a power puncher, right? He's not going to be able to very quickly win back any minutes he lost on the ground. He can mount volume. He does well in breaking people down, but I don't think he's going to be able to have enough time on the feet to get his game going and steal a decision from Chimaev. So I think ultimately that's the problem. Chimaev probably has a finishing upside. He could potentially finish Strickland on the ground. I don't think it'll happen, but he's definitely going to be able to get a lot of takedowns and quite a bit of control, I'd have to say. And I just don't think it's too likely Sean Strickland's going to be able to counter all that control, all the ground and pound and sub attempts he might face with his jabs and his style of striking. I just don't think he's going to be able to win back the minutes enough. So that's why I think Chimaev is going to win this fight at least an 80% clip. But at 80%, there's no value on minus 550. That's a negative EV bet. What I do like, though, and I like this against DDP, fight goes the distance could be the way to go. Now, that might seem kind of square just because his last fight went the distance. But yeah, I think Sean Strickland is knowledgeable enough in the jiu-jitsu to avoid getting put in too many bad positions and to avoid getting submitted. I think Sean Strickland actually might just, take a moral victory from not getting finished here because he's such a big underdog. So give me Khamzat Chimaev by decision. The decision prop might be the way to go for this fight. So there you have it. We got through all the breakdowns. If you guys enjoyed, like the video and subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content because we still have another fight card coming up before the break. I'll see you guys later. Peace.